Why?
Oh, actually, I do have a
Mm-hmm.
question for you.
Sure. Shoot it.
So, do you review your own gameplay quite often, or is that something you did when you were trying to improve?
So, me personally, back when I was improving, I'm not sure how much of my bio you saw, but I actually started off in
Mm-hmm.
silver.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have a peak that was in like top 50, top 100, that area.
Mm-hmm.
And during that whole climb, I'm trying to think. I don't think that I really did any self-aud reviews, and I'll explain what my method was outside of that. That's not to say that I think self-aud reviewing is bad. I just personally never had the patience for it. I think that it's a very good idea. I was just all about the playing, play, play, play,
Yeah.
which probably wasn't like the most wonderful thing. It just goes to show that you can climb without it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely still a useful tool to be able to climb. But the same principle, whether or not you're doing it outside of game in a replay, or if you're doing it while you're playing, which is what I would do, is mistake identification. Looking at your gameplay and thinking, what the heck did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Then taking it a step further and not just thinking what did I do wrong, thinking through like the intricacies of the issues with your mistake, and then looking for the solution to that mistake, which is usually just the opposite of the mistake, and then trying to apply that to your gameplay. So an
Okay.
easy way to think about that is like, for example, deaths are a mistake that pretty much everyone can acknowledge and understands. Deaths are bad, but then you don't want to just stop with thinking, "Oh, deaths are bad. Don't die. No, duh." You want to take it a step further and think, "Okay, well, I just even while you're playing, or if you're watching in a replay, you can be thinking to yourself." Why did I just die? What's the issue that caused me to die?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are some common reasons why people in general die?
Oh, like not paying attention to the enemy's
Hmm.
cooldowns
Lack
or
of
your own cooldowns? Yeah.
Yeah, so lack of awareness, is
Mm-hmm.
one thing. Not paying attention to your surroundings, or you also mentioned misuse of abilities, like if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't use bubble, or if you used bubble at the wrong timing, that sort of thing, or jumped into their
Yeah.
team. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Other ones would be things like poor positioning, being too far away from cover. You also have overaggression, such as like just running in, in 1v6ing, or sorry, at this point, 1v5ing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have some other more minor ones like movement, but for the most part, those are the main
Yeah.
ones. So those would be the issues within the mistake. So you want to identify the mistake, then the issues within the mistake, and then you want to figure out, okay, which ones are repetitive, which ones keep cropping up. What's the solution? The solution is often just the opposite. So if you're dying because you're not using cover, solution is to use cover, right? It's as simple as that. If you're dying because you're not paying attention, got to pay attention, and then therein comes the application of putting it into your gameplay, which we can maybe touch on later on in the session. um Usually like to go over that after we have things to apply. um but does that make sense in answering your question? Do you have any others?
Yeah, all these things you're bringing up, I definitely can bring up like instances that I've blundered in that way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the important thing
Okay.
is just to think about it and to
Mm-hmm.
learn from those mistakes. And I did that in a style where I learned from those as I played. And I just grinded out the game a ton, especially if you don't have like, 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day to play the game. Doing a
Mm-hmm.
VOD review can help you identify that easier, can pull you, make it so you're not having to
Mm-hmm.
do it while you're doing it, like while you're playing, and then also can probably accelerate your self learning and self improvement. But
Okay.
all makes sense.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I actually have never really looked at the VODs of my own gameplay, but this is a like you suggested, I submitted an average game
Mm-hmm.
and I actually went through this video by myself already and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I don't know, man. You're gonna think that I'm probably a bot, honestly,
No, it's
but
all good, man.
we'll see how it goes.
you know, you'll be fine. I've coached, you know, like gold and plat and diamond borders and bronze. You know, it, there's always somebody worse, so don't worry too much about it.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And
Okay.
then I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead. All
So
right.
real quick, I've
Mm-hmm.
never really seen the team play up there at
Mm-hmm.
that ledge before. So when I was in this position, I was like, well, I can just push the cart honestly for free
Mm-hmm.
then if they're not gonna come and contest me. Well, like, what are your thoughts on all
Mm.
that?
I would say that rather than this, right, like I would probably say that you're gonna be much better off if you are trying to do a soft engagement, and that's maybe something we can go into in a little bit of like what's the difference between a soft dive and a hard dive, and when do you do each. But right now we probably want to be jumping into them, not necessarily like doing that super hard and then dying as a result, but maybe we just
Mhm.
tap them, you know, drop bubble, create some space, and then drop back down to, you know, underneath them once we
Okay.
start getting contested. But that would probably create a lot more space for your team because you don't need to be the one pushing card. You have teammates
Okay.
who, if you create space, can push card for you, right?
Okay.
And if you're kind of leaving them to their own devices, excuse me, sorry, I have to cough.
No worries.
All right. So if you're leaving them to their own devices, they probably have a bit better of like poke than you guys, particularly in the tank v tank matchup. They're on Sig, you're on Monkey. If we're
Hmm.
just kind of chilling on cart, then they just outpoke us with the shield essentially. So we, rather than just sitting on cart, go and engage. Doesn't, you know, like I said, doesn't have to be super hard. Just go and engage them, and then that way you're creating space for your team to push cart, and then not just getting shredded while we're just kind of chilling out here, which is probably just going to be the outcome, is that they just get free damage and then we don't do anything back, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Make sure, generally speaking, make sure fully charging those right clicks, just because the
Mm.
non-fully charged ones are going to be doing very, very little damage.
Okay. Okay.
So you know, maybe next time you go to the trading range, I can show that, but you know, you're doing a lot less, so just make sure you're fully charging it. Also noting that there's a kind of break point where it'll just hold it rather than charging
Hmm.
up more. So kind of same thing as Zen and Zenyatta, and who else am I thinking of off the top of my head? We'll just go with Zenyatta because I'm blanking on the rest who do it who do it the same way.
No worries.
Symmetra would be another one.
Okay.
Yeah, but notice how we're kind of just chilling, and then that's letting our teammates get picked, and then by the time we're engaging, we're already down one, which is an issue.
So what, by the way, what do we
Mhm.
do in instances like that when we're down? Do we fight anyway, try to get ults, or do we just back off and wait for them to respawn?
You can a lot of time, especially right now, like if you're only down a person, you can probably still be fighting it, because being down a single person is not a lost fight, it's just a disadvantage. So at this point, you don't necessarily have to full back and wait for six. You may want, now there are situations where you might want to hang back a little bit, like for example, if you know that you're going to be getting your fifth person in just, you know, like a couple seconds. You know, you just have to wait 4 seconds, and now we got them. Waiting that extra couple of seconds can make it so you aren't going in at a disadvantage. But if you have to wait a whole 15 seconds for this person to come back, then you're probably just better off, like you said, poking for ult charge and potentially even trying to win the fight, because this isn't a lost fight just because we're down a person.
Okay.
Oh, jumping into a wall.
Yeah.
Okay. There we use bubble, maybe not super great usage. We're not really in danger at this point. Anna's a bit low, but I think she's around the corner before we even bubble. Oh, I guess the thing is, I think we also bubble before we even see her health bar here, because her health bar is kind of hidden, and then we bubble. Maybe if we see her health bar there, then that's
Mm.
fine. I didn't see it the first time I went through.
Fair enough.
All right, and then we get
Yeah.
shredded.
Nope. Yeah. As deserved.
Yep. So let's talk through a couple. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go to the training range in a moment. Maybe I'll see like one more fight here. Okay.
The start was pretty bad. I will admit that. I do remember this.
Yeah. Generally speaking, right now we're just giving them way too much time to poke at us. With their Sigma, with their Sojourn, especially those two characters, the longer we as Monkey are just chilling and just sitting there, the
Mhm.
bigger of an advantage. It goes two ways. Firstly, we're not playing to our strengths, and we're playing to our own weaknesses. And on the adverse side, their team, we are playing to their strengths and not playing to their weaknesses. So it's a flip flop on both our ends. In that, like, no matter what, this is bad. Where as Monkey, generally speaking, what's your preferred range?
Yeah, melee essentially. You
Yeah,
got
you
both
close
that
range,
and
right?
defense.
And then the right-clicked X, not at making you a long-ranged character or mid-ranged character. It acts as the filler to fill in the gaps, so it makes you more flexible as a character, more fluid as a character. But it doesn't change the fact that you still prefer to be in on top of them, because that's where you do the most damage. It's going to be where you get the most eliminations. So if we're just chilling back here, they spam us out. Okay, well now what do we do? Well, we can't create space for our team. We have to wait till we get healed. We can't really do anything from this range, so we kind of have to go in, especially at the start of these fights, at the start of these engagements, instead of just kind of peeking and right clicking and peeking and right clicking, because that's not really going to work out too well. Okay, so once we get healed, notice how we just kind of peek and right click again. We should be, like we said, right now we should just be diving up. There we go, Nano. Okay, great bubble. Rewatch it like one more time. There we accidentally carry ourselves a little bit too far to the side. But good bubble. Okay, nice. I think I saw it there, but just to double check before we go and demonstrate some things in the training range, you're cognizantly aware of how to do short jumps, yeah?
Yeah, with the S key.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Just checking. I did a coaching session with someone earlier today playing Monkey who I had to explain that to, and oftentimes I will have to explain that to people. There you go. All right. So why don't we exit out here and we're gonna go over a couple things.
Okay.
All right. Firstly, let's start with your right click. Just demonstrating what we can do with this, because some people aren't really using this to the best of their abilities. So firstly, let's demonstrate the difference between full charge and tap, full charge. Right.
Shit.
Big,
Like
big
5 damage
difference.
versus 50. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big difference between the tap to full charge. So we want to make sure that we're doing more than tapping it.
Big time. Okay.
Secondly, let's go over range. Right, it does not have infinite range. Okay, notice how they're not taking any damage from here. Okay, 30 meters is our range, right? So that's here to there is 30 meters.
Is there fall off on it too or no?
I do not believe so. Same damage. Then the next thing, let me finish off this guy real quick. Next thing is that you want to make sure that you are comboing your right click in with your dives. So I'm not sure. Are you aware of how you can animation cancel your melee in with a jump?
Oh yeah, that yeah.
So you can actually do all three together and do lots of burst damage on landing. So let's demonstrate a normal jump. Normal jump. Look at their health, right? Then we burst them down. Takes a little while. Okay. Now we do the jump melee, right? We do jump, melee. Oh.
I saw that.
you notice it. Yeah, we do a little bit more damage. Now let's do a full charge as we're jumping.
Okay.
And we're doing yeah, it's it's a little bit over half. They're like getting booped off. Let's see if I can do, maybe if I do these guys over here, a bit easier if they're not falling off the map, right? We can charge us as we're jumping at people. so that as we're landing on them, we're doing that much damage versus that initial,
Ah,
little bit. So you
okay.
almost always, if you have ammo, if you have the time, almost always gonna want to charge up a right click before you can start it, because oftentimes you're not jumping straight up in the air. So
Uh-huh.
oftentimes you're gonna want to start the charge before you're jumping, so that by the time we're landing, we already have it available.
Oh my god.
So just make sure that's gonna be a great thing to add to your combos. Let's see what else. We're gonna talk about soft diving. So firstly, get in there, be active more. Um, Generally speaking, maybe we can go over some aggression scaling later, but generally speaking, you want to be going in when you're able and getting out when you're not able. Like, just that's how aggression as like in general works, is that you don't do anything if you're not going in. And then, or you're not engaging the enemy team. And Monkey being that close range character, you have to be diving in or getting close to them in some fashion for you
Mhm.
to be able to get value. And then once we start getting low health, we feel pressured, that's when we back out and we disengage, and then we reset and then repeat it all over again.
Mhm.
Whereas we seem to be going in maybe like half as much as we should be, which is just not creating as much space as we could be getting. We're not doing nearly as much damage. Less damage means less elims, less ult charge. Overall,
Mhm.
we're just doing less as a character because we're not engaging as much as we should be.
I will
Um,
say
mhm,
that first start of the game is kind of atypical. I am usually like really
mhm.
aggressive. You'll see that like
Right.
towards the rest of the match, but
Sounds good. So maybe we can at some point, like I said, maybe we'll go over some aggression scaling, so you know when to
okay.
be doing when do you go aggressive, when do you play passive.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect.
then for now, let's go over soft dive versus hard dive. Get that out of the way. Soft dive is essentially anytime that you are engaging with, essentially anytime you're engaging softly, not hardly. When you sometimes this might mean that you're not even using abilities when you go in. Abilities can be used to, maybe you get in without even using jump. Maybe you don't even use bubble. Sometimes you will use your bubble. Sometimes you will use jump, but they're less. You don't need them in a lot of times when you're soft diving.
Mhm.
Then on top of that, soft diving is often done with the intent of getting not just going in hard for an elim, but with the intent of creating space, getting ult charge, creating pressure, and getting damage in that maybe opens up for a kill, which is all of which what we should have been doing on that first point.
Okay.
And then I'll demonstrate a little bit of how you can soft dive here. Soft diving, use a couple different methods. Firstly, let's say they're up on the high ground, like on that first point. What we can do is, just as soon as we're able, we leap up, we can test, maybe we drop a bubble. As soon as we feel pressured, all we gotta do is just drop back off high ground, right?
Okay.
And now we're out of their line of sight. We can get healed very easily. By the time we drop, a lot of times we'll have our leap again. So if we need to leap out, we can leap out. But it's a very easy way to disengage because of all that distance that we're just, getting away from. We can also do this on the flip side. If we have a high ground, is what we can do is rather than leaping into them, we can just drop on their heads, and then as soon as we feel pressured, we just leap back to our back to high ground, and then we get healed and we repeat. Right, and that's
Mhm.
soft diving. Another soft dive could be like using cover to walk up towards them. So like using this, walking up towards them, getting some damage in. We feel pressured. We leap back to our team.
Okay.
Soft dive, quote unquote. Right. Hard diving is when we're going in far, deep, where we're going into the middle of their team. This can only be done when you have the opportunities to do it. So, for example, somebody's off on their own, like this guy over here. We can hard dive them. If you have your ultimate, we can go in super aggressive because we have that get out of jail free card. If your teammates have ultimates, or you're going in with your whole team, or if maybe there's a bunch of people low in their team, right? That sort of thing. When you see opportunities, that's when we're going to be able to hard dive. Whereas you can't just hard dive any time you feel like it, right? You're just gonna die if you try to do that. So maybe we'll get more into the second half of this later, but for the current moment, I would just say want to just learn the skill of the soft dive, because
Mhm.
oftentimes that's the one that people understand. Yeah, I can go in, but they don't understand how to go in with the intent of getting out easily. That whole concept makes sense.
Yeah. No, I'm getting it.
Yeah, right. I think that's about it for the training range for the moment. I guess just one last thing. Well, for tech wise, um, just while we're here, because once again, you knew the S key, but sometimes monkey players don't know about this one. But normal leap distance. Okay, it looks like this. Okay, if we are wanting to just go a little bit extra further, you can also look diagonally, most people know that one. You can look diagonally, but another way you can go further is just by holding space bar, which adds in a bounce at the ends, so that sends you further. Not sure if you knew that one or not.
Gotcha.
Ready.
All right, so we're all the way back here.
Jump! Don't mess with a flying scientist.
It just needed a push. Going up. Now.
Oh, all right. So, right here. I mean, firstly, your whole team dies, so that's not really. I don't think that's much we can control. Um, Other issue here.
So real quick,
Mhm.
this instance, when I saw like all our whole team's up, if I could take these two out of the fight by myself, it's 4v3. So I
Mhm.
thought that was a pretty good idea. Even if I didn't even kill them, at least the alting Sojourn is out of the fight, and Lucio can't do anything either.
Yeah.
That was my
Um.
thought anyway.
Oftentimes, um, people will have like that thought of like, oh, okay, if I just distract two people, right,
Hmm
isn't that me getting value? But you have to think about it like this in a lot of situations.
hmm
Is that when you are playing and you're trying to climb an SR and get better and improve,
hmm
um, to do that, you have to be going above and beyond in your gameplay. You have to be doing the job, essentially doing the job of two people because you're performing so well to if you're trying to climb.
Okay.
And as we discussed before, if it's a 3v4, is that a one fight?
Oh no, actually it's not. We're just at an advantage.
We're
You're
just
right.
at an advantage. So at that point, it's not a guaranteed win. And you're now essentially saying, by just saying, I am simply going to be a distraction here,
hmm
you're giving up your carrying role to your teammates. And if you left up to teammates at your rank, what rank were you again?
I'm like plat
Plat.
one.
If
I'm like
you give up the reins of the game to the plat players, then the plat players win what percentage of the time?
what 50? I'm guessing
50.
it's half.
Any rank the answer is going to be 50, right?
Yeah,
Because,
15. Yeah.
because they're always going the players of that rank are always going to be that rank, right?
hmm
So, if you're leaving it up to your team, the team always is going to be 50. Now, does that, that mean it's not an any and all circumstances thing, but generally speaking, you want to be more ambitious than just I'm going to be a distraction for two people, right?
Yeah.
Now, does this make this a bad play? Um, I would say that the issue is that both of these people are super mobile, and we also don't have any walls to pin them into. A better idea might have been to bait them in further and then pin them into this alley,
Okay.
right?
Got it.
Because then like the issue, is that we pop primal, they just run away, and then we can't catch up, and it's
Right.
super difficult to it's always gonna be harder to juggle than to just pin someone into a wall.
hmm
Um, so maybe what we could have done here is boop them away, boop them away, back up and go back towards our team, right, and help fight people on point
hmm
because the more focus fire we have, the more likely someone is to actually die. Then, if these guys come back into the alleyway, we can just leap back at them, and now they're in the alleyway,
Okay.
right?
Got it.
So that sort of thing. So here, that's kind of the kind
What
of
you're
what happens
saying
here.
makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
All right, kill maybe. No, all right.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
good.
booped me away.
Our team did melt very fast.
Yeah, I mean that was a decent one there.
Good kill.
But I definitely got to implement the right clicks. I mean
Yep.
that's gonna be huge.
100%. Great, great. You just kind of tore apart their team here. Really good. Okay, like we're taking high ground. That's good. Uh-oh. All right, this is
Yeah,
a little
thought I
aggro.
could kill him, but yeah, I should have definitely gotten away from instead of falling back into there.
Yeah. So this is maybe a little bit of an instance of like tunnel visioning, where we kind of forget about all of our surroundings and just land inside of their whole team without any abilities.
100%. Yeah, it was one of those moments where as soon as I landed, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, this is not good." Anyway.
Touched on, but didn't really go in depth on all. And so we're going to cover the basics of it.
Okay.
And you tell whether or not you've won or lost a fight, primarily based upon kill feed. Now, another setting I might recommend is if you go to sound settings, you can actually turn on play sound when enemy is eliminated and play sound when teammate is eliminated. And both of those will play a different pitched sounds if it's teammate or enemy, and also play different pitch sounds depending on how many people are eliminated per side. So that's going to be a handy way to keep track of who's alive and who's dead. But kill feed is still the the best go to as well, because it also shows you who is killed and who is dead.
Yeah.
So kill feed is going to be really important. Kill feed tells you when you're up or down people. Generally speaking, if you or the enemy team are up or down 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage or a disadvantage. We've kind of touched briefly on that before. You play in those circumstances. If you're winning, you play more aggro. If you're losing, you play more passive. Then, if you are up or down 2 to 3 people, at that point, then that is a won or a lost fight. If you've won the fight, you play extra aggro. If you've lost the fight, you get out if you can. If you cannot get out, then you let them kill you so you don't stagger yourself. And then in both cases, you don't use ultimates. Now, right now, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus a 1, 2, 3. Middle of the two can go either direction. Generally speaking, the reason why it's in the middle is because there's a lot of other things to go into whether or not you're winning or losing, other advantages and disadvantages. Which team has closer spawns? Which team has more health? Which team has better positioning? More ultimates, more abilities, etc. Right? There's more that goes into it. Generally speaking, if you are coming into a fight down 2 people and have no other additional significant advantage, that's a lost fight. If you do have a significant advantage, like let's say it's a 3v5, but their whole team is 1 HP, then maybe that's still winnable, right? Or let's say that it's a 3v5, but you have a major ult combo, or yeah, you can keep going with it. Maybe you have a bunch of them added up. Maybe it's still winnable. In this circumstance, what kind of...
Oh yeah, it sounds like we're dead lost here. Moana.
This is, yeah, like you said, this is just a lost fight at this point.
Mhm.
And we're kind of engaging after, like we're coming back from spawn and engaging after we've already lost it. So make sure you're not
Mhm.
walking back into lost fights,
Mhm. Mhm.
that sort of thing. Because there's no reason to engage when we could just regroup and wait an extra couple of seconds for our team.
Mhm.
But now we're coming in, and that's just gonna end up staggering our team even further, right?
Right.
And then you've been playing the game for a while, so you get what I'm saying by staggering, right?
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
All right.
Because if I die late, then I'm coming back later, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the whole point is if we're all dying, we probably want to die together.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
All right, now this is good. We do wait.
Mhm.
They definitely could have maybe punished us there. But like it's good that we now are waiting.
So a higher elo game, they probably would have then collapsed on us then.
Yeah, they definitely could have in a higher elo game if they identified that it was a 5v6 or sorry, man, I keep adding the 6 in there for some reason. I
Mhm.
keep if they identify it's a 5v3, they
Mhm.
might just push you in specific since you're so far forwards, and then you either get baited into primal or you die or yada
Mhm.
yada. So, yeah. Oh. All right. Let's see. Is there anything we could have done better here? Okay. She nanoed the Kiriko. I wonder if that
Yeah,
was
it had to have been an
I
accident.
wonder if that was an accident or not. Maybe he's trying to
Yeah.
hit nano you or something.
Mhm.
Then we dive in. Um, the issue with this dive is, firstly, no,
Boys are away.
we're still down this person. This person is so far.
Mhm. Yeah,
You know,
that looked really bad.
it's at
1v5.
yeah 1v5 at this point, right?
Yeah. I think I probably heard that nano ult go off and I was like, oh, immediately, just run in like I've been conditioned or something.
So we
But
just want
yeah,
to be
no,
careful.
good point, good point.
Why don't because we've seen a bunch of the kind of out of order nature of our aggression. Let's talk about aggression scaling. So aggression scaling is essentially a tool. It's a construct. It's a way to think about your aggression in a way that helps you manage it much better. Aggression scaling is taking aggression and thinking of it as if it were on a scale. You have at 0% super passive,
Mhm.
50%, which is your neutral. And because nothing usually has happened at the start of a fight, you usually come into each fight at 50%. 100% is your super aggressive. You're going
Mhm.
to you're going to start off at 50. You're going to slide yourself along the scale upwards with advantages and with opportunities. And you're going to slide down the scale with disadvantages, lack of resources, and danger. So let's define
Mhm.
a couple of those. Advantages and disadvantages, we pretty much covered all those already.
Mhm.
We went over kill feed, which is let's translate kill feed into this, right? Let's say you're up a person, you go from 50 to 60%. You're
Mhm.
up two people, maybe go from 60 to 70. You have three people, 70, 80, so forth. Same thing,
Mhm.
other direction, right? You're down a person, you go from 50 to 40. Down two people, you go from 40 to 30, etc. Other advantages and disadvantages also fit themselves in accordingly based off of how many are there, how massive are they, that sort of thing. You also will adjust upwards with opportunities. So, do you see somebody who is isolated? We've already kind of we also touched on opportunities when we were talking about hard diving, right? That hard diving is in of itself is essentially a 100% commitment. You're sliding your aggression all the way up to the max and you're going in. And that's not a necessarily bad thing, but we can't do that when everything else in our game is screaming, "No, don't do that." Right? So, opportunities are going to be things like, do you have your ult? Is somebody isolated? Are a bunch of people low? Or do you have your team supporting you where you can go in and do like a team play, right? Or do my teammates have an ult to give me? Like, do I have nano boost that can go with me? That sort of thing. Kiriko ult. Now, fine, let's go the other way. Once again, you have lack of resources. Resources are going to be things such as your health and your abilities. If you do not have bubble, you cannot play as aggressive as if you did have bubble. It's just not as an option because you don't have the resources to sustain aggression, or else you will die. Right? And like we said before, you want to play aggro, but passiveness comes when passiveness is required, or else you die and you're forced to be passive for longer periods of time. Now, health bar, right? You can be, you also want to think of this whole process as very fluid. It's not hard locked. Most of the time, you're not going to come into a fight and then stay at 100% for the next 20 seconds or stay at 0 for the next 20 seconds. A lot of times it can be very fluid. So you might come into the fight, you start at 50, you go up to 100 because you see somebody who's out of position or you see an opportunity, and then you go in, you get headshot, and you're now 30 HP, and now your aggression has gone from 50 to 100 all the way back to 0 within the course of 1 second.
Yeah.
Right. Finally, we have danger. Danger is going to be how many people, as of the current moment, are we in danger?
Well, extremely.
Yeah, very much in danger. How many people are looking at you? How many people are shooting at you? How many people are ulting and using abilities at you? And being low HP is not always necessarily equivalent to danger. I can be low HP and around the corner and perfectly safe, but I can be very much in danger sitting right next to a diva bomb at full HP. But HP usually does impact danger level, right? The lower you are, the more danger you are in. So all of that's all the process. It might seem a little bit overwhelming, but as you kind of put it into practice and think through it, it'll all kind of come in the snap of the fingers. And then once you get really good at it, you don't even need to think of the scale anymore, because the scale is just a tool. Like I said before, you don't even necessarily, like, I don't necessarily use the number tool for myself while I play, just because I can kind of get a feel for it as I'm playing, just because of like the experience and level of gameplay. But when you're starting out with it, this is very helpful to get a sense of how you should be playing and identifying where you should be playing. So as of the current moment, what should our aggression be?
Well, 0. Sounds like I should. Well, I'm dead, right? Would I want to ult and get out, or do I just die there?
If your team, because it's not even really a fight yet, you might want to just hold on to your ult and let them kill you.
Okay.
After you've already made the mistake, because otherwise your team's just not gonna be able to even catch up in time. Something you could maybe do, is primal, and then rather than booping them,
Away. Yeah. Yeah, into my team. That
into your
sounds like a
team.
good idea.
Yeah, and then that keeps them from, keeps you alive. That might actually be the best option here. It keeps you
Yeah.
alive, and then also kind of recovers by getting closer to your team.
Okay. Jeez, man.
What should your aggression be at, like on the scale?
Is it 0?
Yeah, 0.
Oh. Yeah. What am I currently playing at? 100 for sure.
Right. So
I
Mhm.
think I was playing on the assumption that I was nanoed, and I clearly didn't notice it, right?
Mhm.
Like usually there's a blue hue around you and all that
Yep.
zap and shit. But I
Mhm.
mean, if I was nanoed in that instance, do I jump in anyway, even though my teammate's still in spawn?
You
Like, what
probably
do I do?
honestly, if you were nanoed, honestly, that probably wouldn't have been too bad of a play
Okay. Okay.
because you can with a nano boost and a primal, you can
Mhm.
sustain a lot of damage, and they probably wouldn't have been able to shred you super fast if you had both
Okay.
of them. Um, Additionally, like we said, you can also them back into your team, and then that means that you um, are getting them back into your team if they back up super far. Excuse me. If they back up super
Mhm.
far, then you can just leave it be, and like if they just full back, then and you're super far away from your team, just let it be, and let the nano go. It's better to ultimately, it's better to save your life and stay alive in the fight than it is to waste the one ultimate and do nothing with it. Because
Okay.
even if you dove in, you weren't going to do anything with it anyways. If it's a 1v5.
Right.
Yep.
Another question here.
Mhm.
So let's say I was nanoed in that instance. Do I alt or like? Well, I mean, essentially had to alt anyway because
Yeah.
I was
Unless you
stunned.
unless you were about to die, usually you want to stagger them, so you would use the
Okay.
nano first, and then as the nano runs out or as your health dwindles, then you ult.
Okay.
Because they're both not very high bursty value abilities. They're both or ultimates. They're both the value in their ultimates
Sustain.
come, yeah, and they're sustained and they're consistent value. That's why they both last a little while, and they're kind of in the passive buff realm of ultimates. It's still a very good passive buff, but it's kind of the passive buff. And if you stack two passive buffs, it's not really like the bestest. You're better off going for a longer duration of the passive buffs,
Got
if
it.
that makes sense.
Okay.
So oftentimes they get staggered. Not always, but oftentimes you'll stagger them.
Okay. This is a good point because when I watched through this, I didn't even stop at
Hmm
that moment. But when you stopped and backed up, and I was like, oh God, what am I doing? Yeah, very obvious.
All right. Oh, there's one. There you go.
So now I'm in the heart of their team with no cooldowns again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do have a
Yeah.
kill though.
Yeah. You just gotta be careful of bouncing off that high ground. I'm not even sure if that's purposeful or not.
I'm not sure either. Yeah. Probably should have just stayed up there, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That would have given us a great position to, like we are talking about before, like with the soft dives. High
Hmm.
ground's fantastic positioning, especially for dive. That's why dive is so good, so phenomenal on maps that do have high grounds. Is partially because of their ability to traverse it so easily, but then also in their ability to use it for their engagements. It's going to be very helpful in your ability to, just walk into their team without needing to hard engage every single time.
Okay. So this is what I remember this instance. I
Mhm.
was like, let's just run away. Everyone back away. They nanoed their fucking sojourn.
Yeah, that's fair.
Should I have done that? Should we all do that, or should I just int in like trade like sojourn for me?
Yeah.
No, like int in out of their team. She's coming to my team, right?
Oh, you're saying just like try to
Mm-hmm. Mm, okay.
you try to you bubble, you put pressure on Sojourn, you let your team get around the corner. Right now as well, note that you're still down a player, so not to say that you need to like full disengage, but you might want to play a little, like we've been saying, maybe play a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
passive anyways because you're down somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at this point, like if you went once again, if you go in like 1v4, you're probably not getting a kill anyways. You're
Yeah.
probably just gonna get insta
Probably like
shredded.
a half second at time or some shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, it's probably better that we just literally do what we did there.
Okay. Okay. Good. I wanted that guy dead so bad. Yeah. Oh, by the way, do you recommend I talk to my teammates at all, or should I just like do my own thing,
Talking is
like
not
call
so
outs and
so when
shit?
it comes to call outs, think of call outs in the same realm as like character swaps. Um in that you can play whatever character you want to play and whatever play style you want to play, and make it work and climb to you could get the top 500 playing a bad character, you could get the top 500 playing a medium ranked character, but it doesn't change the fact that there's still good characters, and it's not that it would be necessarily bad to play an average character. It's just that you're missing out on the advantages. So you can maybe think of it in terms of bad characters would be neutral. Okay character, or sorry, bad characters would be a handicap, right? A slight just a
Mm-hmm.
slight handicap. You can still do it. Um, Neutral characters would be neutral, and then good characters would be a slight advantage. Just slight. It's not nothing usually super massive. I mean, it has been in the past, right? I think like Brig, right? During goats and things like that. But um, as of the current moment, it's probably more like a slight advantage. Same thing with communication. I wouldn't say you are going to be in some situations. The lack of communication might be a negative. Most of the time, it's going to be a neutral, and then if you do communicate, then that is a slight advantage.
Okay.
As long as you're not, I would just recommend like
Constructive.
don't make sure it's
Yeah.
constructive. Don't distract yourself with it. Like sometimes like you can forget about your entire gameplay if you're talking too much. Um,
Dude, it's so like in that instance, I was telling everyone to just back away. I
mhm,
communicate quite a lot, but
yeah,
the first time I hit platinum is because I was just like, all right, I'm not gonna be even in voice chat. I'm not gonna talk to anyone anymore. And then
yeah,
I don't know. It's like when I'm talking and like telling people to do shit or pointing things out. Like I don't play quite as well
yeah.
at all.
I would say
Um,
just you want to kind of ingrain it so it's an autopilot thing. It's not
mhm,
something you want. You can maybe practice at it so that it is an autopilot thing, and then kind of just let it be. But it's not something that you want to be.
yeah.
It is more of an advanced skill. There
Mhm.
are a lot of it is gonna get you a lot of value, but in a lot of cases, if they're especially when you're lower down the ranks, there are more pressing matters in your gameplay,
Yeah.
um, like we've kind of been going over. That
Yeah.
some of this stuff is more pressing than your ability to talk to people. Another handy thing I might just recommend is just ping. Pinging is just a great feature if you're not wanting to put the brain power into saying something or whatever. Just ping what you're
Mhm.
shooting at. Ping if you see someone's low. Ping if someone's out of position. Right, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Also, handy thing I just learned is that you can actually, if you die, you can actually press the ping button and it'll ping who killed you for up to three
Oh,
seconds.
I learned that recently.
Yeah,
But
Karki
yeah.
video?
Yeah.
Or no,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just watching that.
Okay.
All right. Um, let's real quick discuss application. So we have this out of the way before the end of the session. How
Okay.
do you put things into practice? You work on these things pretty much the same way you work on anything that you try to work on, and that is that while you're playing, you're going to make sure that you are actively focusing on the things you're trying to work on. That
Okay.
means that you're not going to autopilot, contrary to popular belief. You're not just going to play to win,
Mhm.
and then instead you're going to play to improve, and that will improve your gameplay. You're actually going to win more. Now,
Okay.
what that actually looks like within your gameplay is that you're going to come into the game, you're going to pick something out, like let's say, for example, aggression scaling. You're going to think to yourself, aggression scaling, aggression scaling, aggression scaling, aggression, 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 awareness, 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 kill feed, kill feed, kill feed. You're going to give yourself a constant stream of reminders to think through all this stuff. And when you do that, well, now your aggression is probably going to be doing a bit better than if you were thinking about it at all.
Okay.
And when you do this for a long enough period of time, it forms it as a positive habit. Once it forms as a positive habit, then you can move on to something else to work on, and then it just comes naturally. You don't really need to think about it as much.
Okay.
Final thing: don't try to do everything all at once. Instead, focus on one category of things, or 1 to 3 smaller things within a category. Like for example, if by the end of the session I deem which is maybe what it's looking like, that aggression scaling is on the higher end of things. Usually I kind of pair awareness and aggression because they're so interrelated with each other.
Mhm.
But that's also an incredibly massive category. Like that's like basically shoving two already big categories together. So that might be overwhelming. Maybe if you feel like that's too much, break it down, pick out a couple core things, like maybe start with kill feed watching and
Okay.
adjust based off of kill feed, and then build upon there. Build upon that. That'll make sense?
Yeah. Is there should I So before every fight, like make sure, we're all in gear ready to go. Like I don't want to be jumping in, with someone in spawn. So
Yeah, before any time, like, is a very handy skill because tanks are often in the front. It's a
mhm.
very handy skill to before you on any tank whatsoever, before you engage, do a quick 360. Check
Okay.
behind you before you go forwards, because if you don't check behind, then you might end up going in when there's nobody behind.
Yep. Saved by Nano.
Okay, maybe could have popped Primal slightly earlier here. So here, this is a situation, right, where notice how we get Lucio and Genji super low, and then we're stuck without
Yeah.
a jump. Firstly, I think we get jump, and then we're a little bit delayed on it, and then we miss. But we
Yeah.
probably, as soon as we got those guys low, and then we were out of jump, that's probably when you can pop Primal, because you're trying to go and you're nearing the end of Nano anyways, and you're trying to get that instant leap to go and catch up to them and finish off the kills.
Okay.
Because the longer they go without you, with you not finishing off the kill, then the better of a chance they have to actually get away from you. Notice how Lucio, if you're looking top left, is already pretty much back to full HP, right?
Yeah.
So we
Okay.
just so we just have to go finish off those kills fast and let him get away. All
Okay.
right. Let us do the wrap up review and main points of the session. We were going over Monkey the whole time. Starting with ability usage. Jumps, pretty decent. I would say it was more about the aggression with your jumps. Just the jump mechanics, pretty decent. Make sure we're not like accidentally bouncing into their team. Whatnot. Combo right clicks with your jumps, but that's not necessarily even directly related to the jump itself, the mechanics of the ability. Then bubble, don't kind of just plop bubble there. Honestly, I don't think bubble usage was too shabby. In a couple situations, or maybe it wasn't great. Just make sure it's not being plopped, but it's being put down with purpose, which wasn't bad enough for us to even go in depth on that. So overall ability usage, probably like low to medium priority for you to work on, not super high up the spectrum. Ult usage, it's a very flexible ultimate. You can do a lot with it. Consider booping people back into your team. Make sure you don't overextend with your ultimate. Try to pin people into walls with it, rather than just booping them around and trying to chase after people. Use it with, I think you did it well, but use it at the end of the nano boost, and also just like use it to catch up there to those people at the end, like we were talking about. Overall, though, I'd say kind of more minor nitpicks of like a couple things we could have done better with it. But overall, maybe that's like a solid low to medium, or maybe a higher end of a low to medium, something like that. Then we have your mechanics, which actually Monkey doesn't really have too many mechanics. Right click usage. Remember your 30-meter range. Fully charge it and combo it right with your leap in on people. I don't know if I even noticed too many times. Like maybe I just missed it because it's animation canceled in, but I don't know if I noticed the melee in.
Oh yeah.
It's possible I
I have
missed
that
it.
on my mouse.
I don't say it.
I try to do that. I try to do that every time I jump. Is the melee cancel for sure. But not that right click thing. That is new to me. So.
Yeah. So, and it's possible I just missed it. It's easy to miss just because it's hard to see. But yeah, that's honestly it's about it. Maybe like a couple minor target priority things, but we didn't go in depth on it. Um,
Oh yeah, good idea. So should I focus in general like healers first or tanks
all
first?
right.
Like what
Um,
is that dependent
Great
on anything?
questions. I'll try. I'm gonna go through it really quickly because we're getting
Okay.
towards the end of the
Perfect.
session.
Mhm.
So to answer that question, the two biggest factors that go into target priority are easy to kill and highest value. Highest. Now this isn't in terms of which roles are necessarily the best roles, but in terms of ability to get consistent burst value. Usually the biggest is tank currently because it's kind of 2-in-1 role. Then you have DPS with their ability to get like quick picks, and then supports are third. Not necessarily the worst role, but in not like they can't just one tap 3 people and then win the fight, right? In
Okay.
a lot of cases. So in terms of burst value, they get a little bit more. So they're bigger threats is the way to think. But that's probably a better word for it. They're bigger threats. And what are the biggest
Okay.
threats? But then you have easy to kill, and this reverses a little bit. Tanks are the hardest things to kill. You don't want to be shooting at them a lot of the time. You can shoot at hard things to kill if they're low, out of position, if you have an opportunity, if they're the only thing you can shoot at. But besides that, you want to pretty much ignore them. And then secondly, supports are probably the second hardest, generally speaking, because they just added Kiriko, who is high escape. Mercy has more mobility, and then also all of them have self-heals now. Um, but there are exceptions, like, Sombra's gonna be harder to kill than Zenyatta.
Okay.
Right. So generally speaking, non-end all be all, but generally speaking, DPS come first, supports come second, very close second, and then tanks usually come third when given the opportunity. And that's just a real quick run through that. Make
Okay.
sense?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then let's see. We got so overall right click usage pretty important, but hopefully you'll catch on fast with that. That's just like get rid, get used to the tech sort of thing.
Yeah.
Medium priority. Then we got your positioning. Make sure we're getting in close so we actually do things. Use cover. Sometimes we'd leave cover. Take high grounds. High grounds, fantastic positioning. Look to take it and maintain it, and don't give it up. Don't give it up easily for no reason, etc., etc. Overall, once again, I don't think we even really talked a ton on positioning. Overall, that one is probably like a medium, something like that. Maybe lower end of medium. And then finally, we have awareness/aggression, which is an absolutely massive category between the two. But it's kind of intertwined because they're so close together. But like I said before, because it's so big, maybe pick out a couple things rather than trying to do all of it.
Okay.
Watch your health, watch your abilities, watch kill feed, 1 to 2, advantage disadvantage, 2 to 3, won or lost fight, go super aggro if you're winning, play passive if you're losing, get out if you've lost, get out if you can. If you can't, let them kill you. And then besides that, no ults. Make sure that you're just generally paying attention to your surroundings. Where's your team at? Do 360s, right? Check out where's your team, where's their team. Excuse me for a cough break.
No worries. Okay.
Oh, it happens at the end when I try to talk real fast.
Yeah, I know.
Then
Crunch on timing here. So.
then also aggression scaling, right? 50% neutral, 0% passive, 100% super aggro. Go up with advantages and opportunities. Go down with disadvantages, lack of resources, and danger. Overall, that was a medium high to high. That was like the biggest thing.
Okay.
Obviously, since we spent the majority of the session on it.
Yeah.
Overall, to put that in order, number 1, awareness/aggression. Number 2, probably get used to those right clicks. Right, that's going to be hopefully pretty simple to apply. Number 3 is going to be positioning. 4, ult usage. 5, ability usage. Any questions?
I have one thing. Do I want to be saving my ultimate, or do I want to be like using it off cooldown, or is it like super situational?
Generally speaking, using off cooldown unless the situation calls for the alternative. So like if you've already won or lost the fight, don't use it. But if you have your ults and the fight's not been won or lost yet, or you don't have a major advantage or a major disadvantage, then you probably should be using your ultimate so you can get value out of it. Now, there are exceptions, like you don't want to over ult if you see, okay, like, we have 5 ultimates, maybe we don't want to use all of them, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, more so off cooldown unless you've won or lost.
Okay. Okay.
Alright.
All right. Cool, man. I really
So, yeah.
appreciate your time. That was freaking great.
Yeah, my pleasure.